Yu-Gi-Oh has a ton of really cool and unique rarities. You've got the Starlight Rare, the Quarter Century Secret Rare, the Ultra Rare, Super Rare, Rares. You got the Duelist Saga Ultra Rares, and all these other really cool, unique ones like the Noble Knight box ones. But my personal favorite rarity outside of Super Rare is actually Collector's Rare. And Collector's Rare is a really unique rarity in that it covers the entire card in this really cool reflective little foil here. And it's a rainbowy style foiling that even the borders can sometimes have these really unique effects. And this was originally introduced back in the OCG a few years ago, pre-COVID, I believe. But for us, it was actually introduced into the TCG in 2020's Toon Chaos set. Now, I unfortunately don't have any Toon Chaos Collector's Rares easily accessible with me. They're actually all very expensive right now, and I only own one, and it's a Chaos Creator that I'm not quite sure where I placed it in my move. But I wanted today to go over some of the really cool Collector's Rares that I just have kind of laying around my office and just kind of show you guys some of the cool stuff I have. So after the Toon Chaos, we ended up having the next set, which was Genesis Impact, and that introduced the second set of Collector's Rares, which was unique because the first set wasn't the greatest. The foiling was a little bit bland and was very flat, is the best word I can describe it. And Genesis Impact sought to fix a lot of those problems, but actually had its own unique issues in that the cards would actually have these little splotches on the artwork and sometimes over the text box where the additional layer of foil didn't dry correctly. And so that was really cool. I don't unfortunately have any of those ones either. That's actually something I'm in the process of trying to get a few of myself. But that introduced the Evil Twins is the most popular set by far for that. And that was really popular with the fans, and we saw that it did incredibly well. After that, we had Ancient Guardians, which was the first Collector's Rare set that I had the pleasure of getting to work on myself, and that introduced the Ogdoadic monsters. And these are really cool. You've got the Ogdoadus, or Ogdoabyss, the Ogdoadic Overlord, and this set really, I think, was the first one that really showcased what you could do with some of these Collector's Rares. This one has this incredible spiral that I'm trying to capture. It's really hard to do with this lighting, but you can kind of see it goes around the Ogdoabyss itself. And we saw iconic cards like Snake Rain, and I believe Dinosaur Pancratops might have even been in here as well. And then we've got Aeron, the Ogdoadic King. These cards are really cool. They weren't particularly good, but you'll notice that they don't have the splotchy problem that the previously mentioned Genesis Impact Collector's Rare did, which was really nice to see. And it just meant that Konami was listening to its feedback constantly at that point. They were always trying to do better with the Collector's Rares, and as you can see, it goes all along the card, and even along the border, you get that really cool shattered glass effect, and that was just really cool to see. Then from there, we had King's Court, which introduced one of my personal favorite Collector's Rares of all time, which is Reinforcement of the Army. Now, this one is actually a European print one, so it's going to have a slightly different foiling pattern than its North American counterpart. And throughout the video, I'll actually be showing both NA and EU print Collector's Rares side by side for the ones that I have, so you can see the difference. But you can see this one has the really cool bands. That wasn't quite as prominent in the North American print Reinforcement of the Armies. And if you ever see the card in any of my deck profiles, that is actually the exact copy I use. But up until this point, the Collector's Rares were kind of hit or miss. You had awesome ones like Reinforcement of the Army and Dinosaur Pancratops, and then you had some duds that, if you weren't really a fan of the deck, like the Ogdoadic monsters, didn't really feel that good. However, the next set was the Grand Creators, and this introduced 3 sets of absolutely incredible Collector's Rares, including the reprint ones. First up, we had the Punk Monsters, and these are some of my favorite cards in the entire game. As you know, if you're a fan of this channel, you've seen these many times over, and this Foxy Toon is a perfect example, actually, of how cool that foiling can be. And then actually we have the first of a few NA and EU comparison ones. We have No Punk Ogre Dance. And I'm actually going to pull these two out so you can see the difference. The first thing you might be noticing is that this one, which is the European print one, is much darker. Which, interestingly enough, for the Collector's Rares, I'm not always necessarily a fan of, because as you can see, the North American one, you can see the artwork a lot better. but the foiling on the European counterpart is really cool because it almost does that shattered glass better. And as you can see, it really just catches the light in a unique way. Whereas the North American one is just shiny, which isn't a bad thing at all, but it's just an interesting little difference to note. So there was that one. And then, of course, you've got the boss monster of the deck, Yugioh Punk Amazing Dragon. And I actually have set aside here a North American one as well. Now, these are, once again, noticeable in that the European print here is much darker and the foiling is caught differently in the light. It's not as prominently, like, shiny, but when you catch it in the light, it really, the details can be shown. I'm going to try to do my best here so you can see each of those little details as you rotate the card. And then the North American one as well. These cards are really cool in that this is the first time that all of the collector's rares in the set, for the most part, were pretty awesome because you had the Punk monsters and you also had, to go with it, Emergency Teleport. And this is a Grand Creators one, which is actually surprisingly cheap to this day, and I'll go into why here in a little bit. But then you also had the Exo Sisters, which I have all three of the different monsters, or all three of the different collector's rare cards here. You've got Sophia, which was one of the ultra rares. And then you have Michaelis. This one is a good example of how it really catches the light. And then you have Exo Sister Pax. Now what's really cool about Pax is you can see that it actually bends with the light along the portrait. That was really cool. I don't have any of the third set because I actually traded them to a friend, but the third ones were the Labyrinth monsters. So this is the first time that we saw three really good archetypes all get collector's rares, and that was just a really unique change because previously the side building, like the deck building sets, weren't always the greatest. So getting to see that as a change was pretty awesome. From there, we had Amazing Defenders, which was the Pearly monsters, the Rescue Ace, and the Mikanko cards. I don't have any of those myself. As much as I enjoy the Pearly cards, got rid of all of those a long time ago, so we don't have any of those. Then you had Maze of Memories, which was a pretty darn amazing set as well. But in there, we actually, I lied. There is one other one that I forgot, which was Tactical Masters. And Tactical Masters introduced ones that I think everybody knows by now, the Runic cards. So these are obviously insanely powerful cards, but Runic Fountain is my personal favorite, and I have one European print and one North American print to show you. You've got the North American print there, which is just obviously really cool looking. Let's get that zoom in. Look at that. But then the European print is even cooler in my opinion because you can see the difference in the foiling. Look at that guy. What a stud. This is the pair of Runic Fountains I actually used to use in all of my Runic decks, in all my deck profiles as well. Got to keep those just in case we're ever going to play Runic again. And then, like I said, we have Amazing Defenders, and then Maze of Memories, which obviously introduced the Gate Guardians, as well as the Excel Synchro Stardust Dragon, Dual Academy, and things like that. I believe that was also, I don't remember if that was where we had, that wasn't where we had Bonfire. But then we actually had Wild Survivors, which introduced the Vanquish Soul Monsters. Unfortunately, I don't have any of those anymore. If you want to see those, you'll have to go to an old video. But filling in that time, we actually also have two more Tactical Masters collector's rares. And these ones are actually really cheap, but really cool looking. So you've got Scapegoat, obviously a goat control staple. That one's really cool looking. This is like a mid-max rarity, which is why it's so cheap compared to a lot of them. It doesn't catch the light as well, but it's actually got this really cool like starburst effect on the foil. And then the Valence ones. These cards are not very great, but if you're my friend Riley from Locals, you sure make them seem pretty awesome. These cards are really cool. I just like the artwork on them, and they're like $3 each, so had to pick up one of those. But then after that, we actually had the introduction of one of the most unique things to happen in Yu-Gi-Oh! History, which was the introduction of the Rarity Collection. Now, the Rarity Collection was really cool because it took basically everything you would need in a format, or just in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And kind of threw it all together. And every card came in every rarity, which was really cool. So you had 7 cards at once, or 7 rarities at once for a card. Now, it looks like I have a couple of them here. The thing is that there's like 78 cards in the set, and I've only got a few of them here, but we'll go through some of the ones that I've managed to hold on to, including Alpha, Master of the Beasts. This card also came as a Starlight Rare initially, so and it came as Collector's Rare because of the set. You got Fallen of Albaz, for all of those Albaz lore fans. Danger Jackalope, which was one of the best reprints we've seen in a long time. Lone Fire Blossom, this is one I was particularly excited about because I had seen the OCG Lone Fire Blossom and I fell in love with it. Pot of Desires. Now, it's also interesting because this set does a perfect example of showcasing an issue that Collector's Rares overall have had, but this set really emphasized, which was that the cards would actually stick to the sleeve. Now, I always use an inner sleeve on my cards, but the issue was that when you'd put a little bit of pressure on there, oftentimes you'd get this situation where, like right here at the bottom, you can see it's actually sticking to the card, and you'd have to, if you hear really carefully, you can actually hear it peel off the card. Now, that might just seem like an annoyance. However, the issue is that it would sometimes pull this glittery foiling because they actually redid the Collector's Rares for this set. These aren't just Collector's Rares, these are prismatic Collector's Rares. And so, while the original Collector's Rares had that cool, unique foiling style that we had seen before, the prismatic ones had this glittery dot style foiling on it that you can see there. And unfortunately, these were very often sticking to the sleeves of duelists. So we saw that, especially in Rarity Collection I, a lot of players didn't like their Collector's Rares, which made it great for people like me who really just wanted to pick them up. And as you can see, if you look really carefully here on this Pot of Desires, this one is a perfect example. Like all along here and down here, it's just sticking. And so you'd have to do that. And that just doesn't sound good. Like, you don't want to have to do that to your cards. But it was also a great way to reintroduce cards to the game that needed a reprint, and there just wasn't a good home for them, like Change of Heart. Change of Heart, prior to this, had become unforbidden. However, the only rarity it came in was a Pharaoh's Rare, I believe. It was absurd in like an ultra rare. So having like a higher rarity was really hard. So getting access to a Collector's Rare, Secret Rare, Super Rare, all these cool rarities was a lot easier. We also saw the reprint of a card like Lightning Storm, which also had a regular Collector's Rare in King's Court. Now was given this awesome prismatic Secret Rare, or prismatic Collector's Rare. And then you've got Small World, a card that is just such a good card. So having, the ability to get it in a Collector's Rare is something I always wanted to do. Pot of Prosperity, big reprint, because this was something duelists everywhere needed, and it only had 2 printings prior. Change of Heart. Called by the Grave. I'm looking right at my Change of Heart over here. Called by the Grave, iconic card. Very cool looking to get all these different rarities. And then even cards like Ice Dragon's Prison. This is such a cool card. Can you believe that at one point this was like a $50 ultra rare? My goodness. And then we've also got cool stuff like Mud Dragon of the Swamp. Previously only a super rare in King's Court, a rare, I think it was a rare in King's Court, a super rare in Toon Chaos, and like an ultra rare in the tins. So getting a chance to get a reprint of that was really cool. Elder Entity Natis, another card that really desperately needed a reprint, especially at this time, because this was right towards the end of like when COVID procedures were really happening, and we really just needed to ramp up our stuff, and we needed to make sure we had all these cards again. And a lot of this stuff was hard to find because of the lockdown. A lot of people were just holding on to cards. But it was also unique in that it introduced some of the alternate arts as rarities that weren't that maximum gold, like the premium gold with like the thick borders. So we saw cards like Nightmare Unicorn get both of its artworks, and that meant that you can also get 2 different rarities of the same card. You can also get 2 different artworks, which really helps with your personal expression, which is always something that I like a lot. And you got stuff like Time Thief Redoer, good card. From there, though, we actually went to Rarity Collection II, after we saw a brief little reprieve through Maze of Millennia, which saw cards like Bonfire and Transaction Rollback and all the the Flame Swordsman cards. We actually saw Rarity Collection II. Rarity Collection II wasn't quite as well received as Rarity Collection I. However, I think that Rarity Collection II was an absolute winner because Rarity Collection II took a lot of the successes of Rarity Collection I and continued those in a way that I think was really good and honored Rarity Collection I in the same way that it really deserved. So as we can see here, we've got some of the awesome cards from that, like DD Crow. Because while Rarity Collection I had most of the Ghost Girls, Rarity Collection II didn't have access to that. So we had cards like DD Crow, and then Blue Eyes Jet Dragon, fan favorite card, and now is actually going to be useful thanks to the Kaiba structure deck, or the Blue Eyes structure deck. And as you can see, this is one of those where they even managed to upgrade the foiling a little bit more, giving it a more of a spiral pattern in there, in the center there. Let's see if we can really show that. And then you've got stuff like Skullmeister. This was a European print Skullmeister, and this one really showcases that spiral foil. Look at that. That is super cool. But this is a card that also just, hasn't seen a lot of playtime, but desperately needs a reprint. One of the big reprints in Rarity Collection II was Magician Souls. This was a card that previously had only been an ultra rare in a duelist pack, a secret rare in Battles of Legend, and then an ultra rare again in the Legendary Duelist Season 3, and that one had the 3 different colors, like the red, blue, and yellow, but it just was so hard to get, and getting a collector's rare of Magician Souls and even Illusion of Chaos was pretty awesome to have, because that was a cool little mini engine that had been played by a ton of duelists by that point. You got really interesting reprints like Chaos Hunter, card that's seeing playtime now, Foolish Burial, that iconic old school card. Let's see if we can get to really showcase the foil. And Rarity Collection II also fixed a lot of the problems with sticking to the sleeves, especially on inner sleeves. It really isn't as much of an issue. And then you've got some awesome reprints like Exo Sister Packs, which we had seen previously had a regular collector's rare, but now got that prismatic collector's rare. And actually I have a European print of the prismatic collector's rare next to it as well. So as you can see here, it's got that little spiral that Rarity Collection II is very well known for. And the North American print doesn't quite have that same imprint, but it is really cool to see and have access to these kinds of cards. Then of course you have stuff like the planets. So you had Reichphobia, and then I believe all the planets were in Rarity Collection II. So you had Calarium, except for the Wraitsoth. I don't believe Wraitsoth was in there. But then you also had a reprint of cards like Twin Twisters here. And this one, of course, you have the 2 to compare. You've got the North American print one, nice and bright, lots of sparkles on it. But then the European print one, I think, is really cool. I'm going to try to catch the light on this one, especially because you can see the twisters get a lot of detail. And that is really cool to see. It was just a great way to see a lot of kind of mid cards that a lot of players wanted to have access to, but couldn't quite find. It was a great way to see a lot of those cards, like Cosmic Cyclone. And getting a higher rarity Cosmic Cyclone, because it did have a collector's rare, but that was like $100 at the time. So now we have the prismatic collector's rare, which is pretty cool. And then you got some older format staples like Forbidden Lance. This was very popular in the Dino Rabbit deck, and also very popular in Necros format for a while too. And of course, the other big reprint in Collector's Rarity Collection II was Crossout Designator. This was like the card of the set, and my oh my, getting your hands on this is important, given that in the current format it's almost a staple in Ryziel decks in general. So seeing that, we also have Solemn Warning, classic card, originally introduced back in 2010 in Duelist Revolution. And then we also have some of the cool extra deck reprints that this set offered, including Garura, Wings of Resonant Life. If you are a follower of my TCG player work, you know how big of a fan I am of this card. Then you've got, oh, that's actually the wrong set. We're getting ahead of ourselves here. Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. That was a big reprint too. And even now, the collector's rare is a few dollars, but the Quarter Century Secret Rare has been bought quite a bit. And then you've got Dagaris the Timeless. This is a great one. Currently useful in the Ryziel deck as well. And then Abyss Dweller. Getting this card in upgrade was so huge. This was a much deserved one. This is probably one of the best upgrades in the entire set, honestly. But that was it for Rarity Collection II. Then we move on to Rarity Collection III, and I've already unfortunately spoiled some of the pieces of that, but that is okay. And Rarity Collection III took some of the wins of Rarity Collection I, some of the wins of Rarity Collection II, put them together, and kind of gave us this awesome set. And we have reprints of stuff like Fabled Lurie, Great card, thanks to the Fiendsmith stuff being seen again. So that seeing this get upgrade was nice because it was like a $10 common recently. So having this be an easily accessible rarity just across the board from super all the way to quarter century was great. And you also had reprints of stuff like Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. But this also introduced a new thing where the original arts could also be in there, but they were also just quarter century secret rare. So that was really cool to see. And cards like Red Eye's Insight, this is more of an anime card, but if you're a Duel Links fan, you also know how powerful this card is, because in Duel Links, this card was in Tier 1 decks for quite a while. Clockwork Knight, great card for machine decks, but is also just one of those cards that desperately needed a reprint. Ancient Gear Fortress, this card was a $20 common. Literally $20. That is crazy to think about. And we have stuff like Ralph Roof Warlords, and then even, again, older format classics like Mecha Phantom Beast Dracosack, which is also really useful in the Kashtira deck. But look at this. This is where that spiral, I think, really starts to shine. Look at that. Super duper cool. And we also saw reprints of cards like Nightmare Phoenix. Thank goodness, because the previous Collector's Rare was absurdly hard to get, and this one also, I think, does a great job of really detailing the Nightmare Phoenix artwork. Also, on the Celebration mat, you get to learn that Nightmare Phoenix doesn't have a face. It's just that. Yeah, weird. And we saw stuff like Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, great card that, you know, needed a reprint thanks to the Tenpai strategy, and even Thunder Dragon Colossus. And then the final set that we had Collector's Rare for so far is actually Crossover Breakers. This introduced the Yugioh, the Malice, and the Ryziel cards. I don't have any of the Malice ones. I've unfortunately traded and sold all of those, but we have the Kiryu, Ryugei, Kaiva. This is a really cool one. Not terribly expensive, but these cards are really cool. And then, of course, you have all of the Ryziel ones. You've got X Ryziel, Sword Ryziel, Ryziel Cross, Ryziel Plasma Hole. This one's really cool. I'm going to try to pull this one out and see if we can see some of the detailing. It's also really cheap. It's only like $6. And then Ryziel Detonator, card that everybody sees all the time, and Ryziel Duo Drive. So that's just a small little glimpse of some of the collector's rares I have and I really enjoy, and I just wanted to share that with you all today. Let me know down below if you guys want to see any other cool rarities or any other cool collection stuff I have. I have a ton of it, and I would love to share it with you. Thanks.